Evangelion is one of the most unique and influential anime series ever made. With its presentation and the ideas it expressed being far ahead of its time, many people, including myself, put anime into two giant categories, before Eva and after Eva. I've been an Evangelion fan for over half of my life, being introduced to the series through the rebuild films on the old Funimation channel, and didn't watch the original series and the end of Eva until I was 15. But now, over 25 years later since the original show first aired, with the release of Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time, I believe we've reached the end. Because this movie isn't what every fan wanted nor expected. No piece of media can be. But I believe this is what we needed, so let me explain this through the lens of this story and its characters. With the world stopping in 2020 and 2021 looking like it's going to be more of the same if infection rates of C19 have anything to say about it, the first 41 minutes of this movie reflect the weird dichotomy of the world right now. Some feeling like their time was wasted as shown through Asuka's outward attitude towards Shinji, others using this time as a chance to find out who they are or what they want to be, with Rei building a life outside of piloting an Eva. And most importantly, many people like our main character Shinji, separated from any vices to distract them or shields to block out the world, look towards the past lamenting over things they couldn't change. Anno and the staff that worked on this film couldn't have predicted the current state of the world, but Evangelion's setting in the early part of this film has some accurate reflections of how many people are dealing with the current state of the planet, with the overall theme of this part of the movie being stagnation, expressed through the silence of our main character, because Shinji for the first 41 minutes of this movie is silent, stuck replaying the events of Evangelion 3.0 over and over in his head, falling into despair deeper than any other point in his life, with him trying to repair the damage that he did to the world, but failing and doing the exact opposite in that failure. However, instead of expressing how he feels about all of this or trying to move forward about the situation, he simply sits in silence doing the worst possible thing at that moment: nothing. One of the biggest things about Evangelion is the Hedgehog's Dilemma. To make it as simple as possible, it is a concept where you have to accept pain as a possibility or an inevitability to get closer to someone else even if that person doesn't mean to hurt you, which is expressed through all of the relationships in Evangelion. But Shinji has retreated from this challenge completely, choosing not to interact with anyone, but also being too afraid to remove himself from this situation permanently, choosing to do nothing but exist. From the outside looking in, Shinji's mental state looks like it's beyond repair. To be honest, 99% of people would be. But that same indecisiveness and regret over his past mistakes are what allows him to linger around long enough to try again. And this process is expedited by the four women in his life. They all do something very integral for Shinji leading up to the climax of this movie. Starting with Rei, after spending some time in the village finding her purpose outside of piloting an Eva, she begins to express her curiosity and emotions in a childlike way because she's never had a chance to do so. But as many people know, children are often blunt, and Rei's bluntness leads to this. This triggers Shinji to start moving forward, and the great thing about this line is that he has time to process it, because usually when Shinji has an emotional breakthrough, he always has the looming threat of piloting an Eva in the back of his head, on top of the fact that this line can be interpreted in a second way. Instead of saying "we like you," he may feel as if Rei said "we forgive you," and from all outward indications shown by Rei, Asuka, Kisuke, and Toji, they do, with them all knowing Shinji well enough to understand that third impact is not something he would do on purpose, letting him start the path to growing up. But we all know growth isn't linear. There are peaks and valleys for all of us when we try to be better people, and Shinji is no different, with him still dragging his feet after his talk with Rei. But upon hearing her final words, he doesn't retreat into a world of his own, even though he has the item to do it. He faces everything head on, accepting the negative feelings people have towards him, including one person in particular, Asuka. So to save you all from a long-winded explanation, Shinji and Asuka's relationship is is complicated, and in my opinion shows off the hedgehog's dilemma to its fullest, because the closer they get, the more they tend to hurt each other, which makes this scene here amazing.
私があんたを殴ろうとしたわけ。わかった？
アスカが3号機に乗っていた時、僕が何も決めなかったから、助けることも殺すことも自分の責任負いたくなかったから。
The fact that Shinji verbalizes this out loud makes it true. Just like in real life, no matter how much we ponder, stew, and think about the things that we realize or want to do, until we put those things into action, they mean nothing. So by Shinji giving her this answer, it means he's growing up. So Asuka accepts it as an apology, admitting that at one point she may have liked him. This is a roundabout reward for Shinji, realizing that by facing situations head on, things may have been different. But like Asuka says, she became an adult in Shinji's absence, and Shinji's non-reaction to hearing that signifies that he already realized this after thinking about Rei's words earlier on in the film, with him understanding that the reason why everyone is nice to him is the same reason why everyone gets angry and frustrated with him. They care, cementing that this boy that we see before us is finally becoming a man. But even as we start growing up, we still need protection so we can reach our full potential, and this is given to Shinji by Masato. One thing that has crippled Shinji's emotional development in every form of Evangelion since its original air date back in 1995 is the lack of maternal love he hasn't received due to his mother's death and the blatant neglect of his dad. These two things molded Shinji into a person who always tried to do what he believed others wanted him to do, in fear of people leaving him or throwing him away, and when he fails at living up to those expectations or fails at doing something of his own will, he shuts down. As kids, we all make mistakes, no matter how large or how little they may be, but what allows us to build ourselves up once again is our parents. This is something that Shinji hasn't had for the majority of his life, the simple privilege of making mistakes. So when he encounters Masato, who takes up a parental role in his life, he finally has someone who encourages him to learn from his mistakes and to do what he wants. And this relationship reaches its climax at the end of the second act of the movie, with Masato and Shinji finally having a true parent and child relationship, with Shinji growing up doing what most people want to do for their parents as they get older,
美里さんが背負ってるもの半分引き受けるよ。
and Masato doing what all parents should do regardless of their child's age.
シンジ君の取った行動の責任は全て私にあります。現在も碇シンジは私桂木美里の管理下にあり、これからの彼の行動の責任を私が負うということです。
So with this connection being cemented, it gives Shinji the last push he needs towards adulthood. But even as we become adults making our way into the world after making repeated mistakes, doesn't mean that it's the end. If anything, it's the beginning. But what's the point of growing up? To become the person you want to be, to make others stop worrying about you, to be independent? It could be all of these things, but in my opinion, for Shinji, growing up, his reward comes in the form of Marie, with her taking away Shinji's last fear before he confronts his dad.
君がどこにいても必ず迎えに行く。だから絶対に待ってなよ、シンジ君。
ありがとう。
As we all know, Shinji hates being alone more than anything else and will go to extreme lengths to make sure that he isn't. So Marie promising him that she'll come for him means that Shinji can now put all of his efforts into facing his father, correcting the mistakes of the past by facing his own, which I find to be poetic. Because regardless of how old we get, we're always going to have fears about the unknown, and even take fears from our childhood into adulthood. But the great thing about being an adult as opposed to a child is that you get to choose how you deal with these fears, and one of the best ways to do that is to bring people into your life that can help you deal with these things. And while Marie isn't a character that affects much of the story, I believe her role in the Rebuild series is significant. Because Shinji is a self-insert of Hideki Anno, it's very easy to understand that Marie is an insert for his wife, looping back to the point that Marie and her promise is the reward for growing up. But don't take this as some idealistic message from Anno saying that if you just become mature, that everything will be just fine. There's no way he would with his well-known bouts of depression. But one message I can take away from the promise of Marie is that you'll never get get a chance to meet your own Marie unless you face life as an adult should. And when you get to that point, you don't stop and celebrate about reaching that goal, you continue. So let me answer the question about why Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 is what we needed. Closure and continuation, not only for us fans, but the anime industry as a whole. So talking about the anime industry first, Evangelion has had an everlasting effect on anime in general. But due to that effect, Anno has felt that anime has been stagnating for over a decade, with comments made as recently as 2014 talking about his dismay with studios not taking risk on more original projects due to a lack of guaranteed profits or funding. This in turn leads to animators leaving the industry because they can't flex their creative muscles, putting more pressure on the people still there, leading to an industry that keeps looking inwards, regurgitating the same ideas with a small twist on them, with the Rei Ayanami XP being one of the biggest examples of this, with so many characters being a carbon copy of her, and Anno's blatant statement in his movie about this making Asuka a clone as well, with her having to fight and claw her way to the top with so many others that look like her and act like her. Can she ever truly be unique is a question that Anno is asking. So when you replace Asuka with anime, it becomes very easy to understand what Anno was going for when throwing in this twist, but he doesn't just speak to the anime industry itself, but the people who support it. With this film, I think Anno was telling a lot of us who've had Evangelion be a part of our lives that you can't stay still. For example, at the end of Evangelion, the final scene is Asuka and Shinji in a destroyed world with obstacles in every direction. But at the end of Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, Marie and Shinji are on a beach with nothing in their way. And the contrast between these endings, with Anno's statements talking about what Evangelion is all about, tells us why we needed this. You must move forward. You can be Shinji at the end of Evangelion, but you can't stay that way. Even if you have to go through many similar experiences to get to this point, you eventually have to become Shinji at the end of 3.0 plus 1.0, moving past your former mistakes to help those around you and the things you care about, just like Anno has done for himself, with him overcoming his depression to fund and preserve the things that he cares about. So just like Shinji, Anno, and Evangelion itself are telling you, the viewer, you can continue. Thanks for watching. But you know what else you can continue to do after watching my videos? Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos about anime and gaming like this one. But with that being said, it's been Skips and I'm out.